What is up, everybody? Welcome another edition of Drive for Show DFS for Dough here on RotoGrinders on a Tuesday night. Coming off the Open Championship last week, a fun tournament. We'll recap that briefly here as we look forward to this week's 3M Open. Definitely a switch in the scenery and the field strength this week, but still fun to break it down. Got myself, Justin Van Zuiden, along with Mr. Notorious, Derek Farnsworth. Noto, what's going on?
Yeah, not much. Hope everyone enjoyed the Open Championship. Certainly didn't see the Ryan Fox win coming. He's a guy that you've been playing for years. And yeah, he seems like one of the better dudes on tour. Certainly a fan favorite when it comes to his pace of play. So, I saw a lot of clips of him on Twitter taking like 8 seconds to line up and hit a shot. Even that last putt on 18, it took him like 22 seconds total, which is crazy. Unheard of on the PGA Tour. So, good to see him win. I didn't have any exposure to him in DFS, but it was a fun Sunday nonetheless.
Yeah, I was kicking myself for not having any Ryan Fox because I've always played this guy. And, I was coming off the John Deere where I had called Zach Johnson, and I made the mistake of going to the old man Stuart Sink instead of my boy Ryan Fox. So we missed on that one last week, but still ended up with a little bit of a profit last week. So that was nice. Some exposure to Fox would have been even better, but it was still a fun week. And even though I didn't play him last week, it was still really fun to see him win. So kudos to Ryan Fox having that great round and climbing up there and then holding everybody off and making that birdie on 18 where, what they say, 20 or 30 birdies for the week, I think I saw.
Yeah, it was really low for sure.
So to be able to make that on your 72nd hole to get the W, pretty special for that. So good job to Ryan Fox, and another close but no cigar for Scotty Scheffler, which is pretty crazy. All the second through fifth place finishes that he's had this year, but it really was a pretty star-studded leaderboard. Cam Young, Sam Burns, Fleetwood, Siwoo Kim, all those guys were kind of in the mix. On Sunday at some point. Ryan Gerard kind of fell off a little bit, but it was a really interesting. And then, of course, the story of the week, the two-stroke penalty for Bryson. And I think I've heard, basically every different argument on this over the last couple, or I guess 4 days since that took place. And if you didn't see it, Bryson got penalized 2 strokes after his round for basically improving the line of his backswing in the heavy rough there on the 5th hole, I think it was. It was just, some people said the arguments ranged from nobody should really care about it to this stuff happens, but a lot of the lesser players don't have a camera on them for every shot, so it's never going to get caught, to maybe if it was Patrick Reed or Wyndham Clark, we should penalize them, but not Bryson because he's generally been an honest guy, to a penalty is a penalty and it should have been called anyway. I think those were maybe the 4 main arguments. Where you stand on that whole debate?
Yeah, I think it's a gray area. I do think by the letter of the law, it does seem like he improved something. I mean, it's hard to tell from all the angles, but you could probably go back and look at the film and penalize a bunch of guys every single round. I mean, we see it all the time, even with Wyndham Clark just recently at the U.S. Open, like that one chip he had where he put his foot down and just stepped really quick right behind the ball. So I don't know. I think it happens all the time. Probably didn't have to call it, but maybe they were making a example out of Bryson. And yeah, I thought he could have handled it a lot better. Him saying he's not going to play the next day and a little bit of dramatic there. But yeah, I don't know. It just seems like the RNA was following, what they thought was right. And maybe they're kind of sending a statement to the PGA Tour that, these things need to be called more often.
Obviously if he's ethical and wouldn't have done this in the first place, that's another argument to have. But if Tommy Fleetwood would have done the exact same thing, again, I'm not saying that Tommy Fleetwood would do something like that. I'm not accusing Tommy Fleetwood of anything, but if the same exact scenario would have been played out and it was hometown boy Tommy Fleetwood, do you think they would have called the penalty on him?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
And the fact that they took him out like after the round, I don't know. It just seemed like they were trying to make a statement with Bryson. So I don't know. It seems like, golfers are always trying to push the rules of golf to their advantage, whether it's drops or improving their lie. Like you see so often in thick rough, guys will go up there with a fairway wood and put it right behind the ball and kind of just to see their lie, but then they end up hitting the iron anyway. Like what's the point of that? It does seem like they do all these little things to, get those small advantages. So I don't think Bryson necessarily is a bad guy or anything like that. I just think he's like everyone else and trying to, if it's not going to get called all the time, then these guys are going to keep doing it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just really interesting, different things that get penalized and don't, and, who's going to call penalties on themselves versus not. It's just so much gray area. I don't know. And then you have the free relief that Scheffler got on 17 for a ball that he basically hit to Norway that nobody ever found. I don't know. That was just a wild thing as well, but obviously didn't affect the outcome. But had me scratching my head. Just
told everyone to stop looking. He told everyone to stop looking for the ball because he knew he was going to get the drop that he wanted. So yeah, there's just so many rules of golf that just don't make a lot of common sense. And then you had, was it Bobby Mack that was out there throwing clubs and swearing and stuff, and he just got a warning on Sunday?
Yeah, and it feels like every 3-4 months maybe something big like this crops up, and at the end of the day, I don't think any of this affected the result of the tournament, right? Unless Bryson wants to claim that he played poorly because he was 2 shots further back, whatever. He ended up finishing 6 back. It just doesn't seem like the end result. Scheffler, right, even with the free drop, still finished 3 back. So don't want to take anything away from Ryan Fox. And, if not for that, we'd be talking about another time where Cam Young was able to close it out in a big tournament. So, that was a really impressive round from him on Sunday after he gave some back on Saturday. So I was impressed with that. Could have very well been another big victory this year for Cam Young. So just remember this the next time people want to bring up that he can't close out a major, but Fox kind of won it. It's just all the credit should go to him, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And man, Cam Young was in the clubhouse. I want to say the leaders were like on 8 or something like that. And you kind of got the feeling that it was going to be Burns and then there's Siwoo for a while. Then it's like, okay, maybe Cam Young's just gonna, sneak in with the win after being in the clubhouse forever. And then
I thought at least a playoff. By the time the leaders got to the other leaders got to 15, 16, I thought we were looking at a playoff. But
yeah, and then Fox bogeys 15. You're thinking, okay, this is Cam Young's first major, and birdie's 2 of the last 3 to win the tournament. And it didn't even birdie the par 5 17th.
Yeah.
So,
and he had a chance. So it was about a 10-footer on that hole, maybe. I think that he had 2 on 17. So good for Ryan Fox. Kind of came out of nowhere. His lead-in form had not been all that spectacular, or else I would have been talking about him last week. But all right, anything else? Takeaways, thoughts?
Yeah, Matt Fitzpatrick. What? Yeah, come on, man. What was that?
Yeah, Matt Fitzpatrick was 30% plus owned in some of the bigger contests. Tom Kim, Justin Rose, a couple other guys. I managed to avoid both of them last week. So part of the reason I had a decent week, even though I didn't have a few of the guys at the top, was my 5 of 6 and 6 of 6 percentage was much higher than field average by not having those guys. Spieth was a disaster. He was in one of the featured groups, I think, on the actual Open Championship website. So I was watching him and Fleetwood and John Rahm on Friday. Spieth had one hole where he 4-putted and 3-putted from 5 feet. It was kind of painful to watch. So definitely a confidence issue and a trust on the greens issue with him at this point. So he basically finished close to dead last for the guys that missed the cut. But yeah, I think that's pretty well covers it. Anything else?
Yeah, I ended up doing, Spencer Aguiar, who we had on a few weeks ago. I did the King of the Drafting that he is hosting, and it basically he gets 4 guys on each week, snake style draft, but you have to stay under the DK salary. And it's kind of interesting. Nobody picked Scheffler last week just because the salary was so tough. But anyway, I was on my last pick, and I was like, I'm just going to take Jordan Spieth, and he almost cost me the whole thing. So shout out to the rest of my squad for picking up Jordan Spieth. That was bad.
Not the best choice in retrospect, but what are you going to do? All right. With that, we will turn our attention back stateside to the 3M Open. So we go. We've got a few weeks here before the FedEx Cup playoffs start, and we'll see some weaker fields. So, but even though we've got the weaker fields, we are going to have the full, field with a cut, and Thursday and Friday cut sweat. We'll have the shot link data on the PGA Tour site, as opposed to trying to navigate the Open app, which has gotten better in terms of them actually showing some shot by shot data, but it's still not quite as fancy as some of the other technology. But we'll be back to that this week. So even though we got a weak field, only a handful of guys really that were in the upper echelon last week. It feels a little bit weird to see Scheffler in the field this week, but after him, it's a pretty good drop off to the next layer of golfers, and quite a few guys that might be on that FedEx Cup playoff bubble are going to be the guys you mainly see the next few weeks. So definitely a different style of event as well. Par 71 course, TPC Twin Cities with a ton of water. I really like this tournament, just because there's a lot of disparity in the scoring. There's plenty of birdies available, but there's trouble available as well. Really helps kind of spread things out, makes things a little volatile, and just interesting, change of pace. Obviously, a lot of birdies like we see on some PGA Tour events, but this course is not just Muni style, go out and hunt every single flag stick. So what do we know about the course this week?
Yeah, I kind of like the course too. It's gotten a lot of hate on Twitter this week. I don't know why people don't like it. It is the week after the majors, so you're not getting an extremely strong field. But I mean, Scotty Scheffler's here. That's kind of fun. But as far as the course goes, TPC Twin Cities, it's a par 71, 7,431 yards. So pretty long for a par 71. And it is a driver-heavy course as well. So guys hit driver on 75% of non-par 3 tee shots last year. However, driving accuracy has been more important than driving distance here in the past. Doesn't mean the bombers can't perform well, and you do hit a lot of drivers, but you cannot spray the ball on this course. That's because water is in play everywhere. If you miss the fairway, it's like a 7.6% chance of resulting in a penalty off the tee for every tee shot. So you don't want to miss a fairway. I think that's one of the highest on the PGA Tour. And you got to be good with your irons. A lot of these greens are surrounded by water, so you got to be extremely precise with your irons. And I'm kind of looking at guys that avoid bogeys rather than make a bunch of birdies. You are going to have to go low to contend here. But again, you want to avoid those big numbers. There's going to be a lot of shots where if you don't cover that body of water, you're basically dropping from where you hit your last shot. It's going to be essentially be a 2-stroke penalty rather than, a 1-stroke penalty where you're dropping up by the green, which we see on a lot of courses. So yeah, I'm looking at ball striking and bogey avoidance for the most part. What are you looking at?
Yeah, I think you could play that from either angle, right? If you want to take the bogey avoidance angle or the birdie or better angle, just because, again, the volatility on this course, and like there's a number of different ways you can play it, right? I think if you wanted to play it conservative and go fairways and greens and avoid the hazards, that's probably a lower upside, higher ceiling approach. Like if you have a guy that needs to make the cut and finish top 30 or 40 to stay inside the playoff cut line, I wouldn't fault that golfer for playing it conservative, taking some irons off the tee in certain spots just to try to avoid the hazards. But then you could also play the big hitter approach. And if you're driving it well, it could be a big advantage. If you're not driving it well, you're probably going to have some double bogeys on the card. But the upside, right, is definitely big if you're driving it and staying in the fairway. So a few different ways you can play this course. I mean, Johnny Vegas won here a few years ago. Tony Finau's won here in the past. Cam Champ has won here in the past. The very first time this event was ever played, Matthew Wolff won, who was, a name for a year or two before, he kind of lost it. But Wolf was a bigger hitter too that kind of hit it all over the place. So it was a bit of a surprise that he won at this course. And then Champ and, Finau and Vegas, aren't necessarily known as the shorter hitting types too. So it's really interesting just because most courses, there's one clear way that you think the guys are going to play it. But here you could take the aggressive approach, you could take the conservative approach off the tee, or you could do some combination of the two depending on where you're at. So I think there's a few different ways you could attack it.
Yeah, for sure. I would say the Bombers have a bunch of upside, but they also carry a little more risk than usual. And yeah, I have so many memories from this event for whatever reason. You mentioned the Wolf year, you beat Bryson on that final hole. That was kind of cool. Finau, I think I had outright on him the year that he won. He used to be like, as Mike in the chat said, he used to be like 10-5 at this tournament. We would play him, as a core play every single time. So it's kind of interesting to see how he dropped off. And then I remember Hank Lebioda. Do you remember when he was like top 10 in every week and came here, made the cut, and then withdrew after he made the cut?
I didn't remember that, but I recalled it real quick when you mentioned it there.
So I don't know why I remember so many things.
What was the story? But he withdrew in the middle of the tournament, right?
It was right after he finished 18. He made the cut, and I can't remember if his wife, something with his wife.
I feel like his wife had a baby or something. It was his dad was in the hospital. So hospital was the reason, but that's crazy. That was way back in the memory bank for me, but I recalled it once you pulled it. That got the heated debate of golf withdrawals and then late swap and all that stuff started again, even though his was after the second round, I believe, after he had already made the cut.
Yep.
When that happened. But all right. In any case, fun tournament. Will be an interesting sweat. Lots of disparities in the scores, depending on if guys are keeping it in the fairways and making birdies or hitting it in the water. With that, we will go to the pricing, which is the biggest pricing gap, assuredly, we've ever had between the top golfer and the rest of the field. Scotty Scheffler is $14.9K on DraftKings, $5,000 more than anybody else. He's $4,200 more than everybody else on FanDuel. And basically, whether or not you roster Scheffler is going to dictate your lineup construction. If you're not playing Scheffler, there's nobody else above 10K on DraftKings, and you're basically defaulting into a balanced build. If you do play Scheffler, you're at $7,020, 7020 for 5 golfers. After that, good luck. What are you doing with Scheffler at that salary tag and, coming off of obviously a long travel week and another close call?
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, you mentioned like if you play Scheffler, you're automatically going to have a similar lineup to everyone else, right? Which is kind of tough in tournaments. And obviously 7K per player isn't great. But then, I started building my model. The top 4 guys in my model are all 7,300 or less. There's a couple in the 6Ks. So it's not like impossible to build with him, especially since like you have Scheffler and then everyone else there's like a little gap between like the 9Ks and the 7Ks. There's not like a huge gap in talent, I don't think. So I think you can play Scheffler, but
he might not even be optimal even if he wins.
Yeah, you'd have to get your 6K guys and your 7K guys to play well. So it's tough. I'm probably going to do 2 lineups, one with Scheffler, one without. So I like him more than most weeks because I do think the values are pretty good this week. But at the same time, you're going to have a hard time differentiating from a lot of the field.
He is minus 160 to top 5, which is
pretty good.
That's crazy. So in any case, there's Scheffler. Obviously, he's there. He doesn't seem jet lagged. They posted a video of him practicing today and then signing a bunch of autographs for kids and stuff. And it's not like he's rolling up on Thursday morning. He's already there on Tuesday. And
did he commit after he lost on Sunday?
What's that?
Is he here? Did he commit after the tournament on Sunday?
I don't know. I know sometimes he just randomly plays.
Because you wouldn't think he'd be here. So for me, it's like, oh, maybe he didn't win, super motivated, decided to, try to get a win. I don't know.
Yeah, I
Maybe
mean,
I'm
I
reading
think
between the lines.
he's been in the field. Yeah, May 4th is when he committed. So he's been here all along.
But he hasn't withdrawn, so he's hopefully motivated.
Yeah, well, he's probably, again, for somebody that's a perfectionist and all that, which I'm sure that a lot of the golfers are, that's their kind of personality style, and I'm sure it's frustrating for him to have a year where he has 10 top 5 finishes and only one of those is a victory, which is, it's pretty crazy, but I'm okay with him. I do not like the 7,000 ish, give or take a few couple $100 one way or the other. I don't like that range quite as much as you do. So that kind of changes my thought process, comparatively speaking. I'm not going to go all out fading him by any means. I'll probably try to get level with the field, but would not be, if I was building 2 or 3 lineups, he's going in one for sure. If I'm only building a single lineup, probably excludes him. Obviously, that makes me a little bit nervous, but again, I don't think necessarily he's optimal, particularly in a small field contest. Even if he wins, depending on if anybody pegs the right value guys around him, or how many eagles or birdie streaks or whatever that he has. So Scheffler, totally fine. If you like the 7K value, and maybe Noto can talk me into a few more of the guys when we get down there, it certainly makes a little bit more sense. If you don't like the 7K value, pretty tough to get him in there this week. That's the first call you got to make, because it just completely dictates the rest of your lineup building. And effectively, right, if you wanted to go with somebody in the 9s, let me just pick somebody mid-9s. If you want to go Scheffler and Keith Mitchell, you only have $6,400 per player. I can assure you that is most definitely not comfortable, trying to get below 6.5K for a few guys. So it basically takes the 9K range out of play. And you can see in lineup HQ this week, I did not tag Scheffler, so I did tag a couple guys in that upper mid to upper 9K range. We've got McNeely in here, Kitayama, Hideki, Keith Mitchell, Jake Knapp, Tom Kim, the rookie, Jackson Koiven, Pearson Cootie, and Doug Gim are your 9K range this week. Kitayama is the defending champ of this event. He has 2 really good finishes here. He's played twice, I believe 5th or 6th place the other time. Been having a pretty solid season in his own right. So if I'm not starting with Scheffler, I'm probably starting with Kitayama. I like Keith Mitchell a good bit as well. Keith Mitchell is the perfect example of the risk-reward golfer that could miss the cut, or could, which he's done once here in 4 trips, or he could top 5, which he's done twice. So I am totally on board with taking some Keith Mitchell shots in GPPs this week. Just if he's going to hit driver, if he's hitting the fairways, there is definitely upside there. So Kitayama and Keith Mitchell would be my 2 starting points in the 9s. Don't mind going back to Tom Kim as well, after he burned some people last week. But you got Koiven in here as well, I think is interesting. But so maybe 3-4 different options that I'd say I'd put in my player pool, especially if I'm not getting a ton of Scheffler. But Kitayama and Mitchell, definitely my favorites. What are your thoughts on this 9K range?
Yeah, Kitayama is my favorite as well. Just been super consistent all year. Very good ball striker. A guy that gains a bunch of strokes off the tee and on approach. So that's kind of what I'm looking for this week. Like, if you just can hit the ball well, you can probably stay out of trouble, which is the name of the game. And won here last year, 6th place the year before that. So he clearly likes the course. Don't mind the Keith Mitchell call. You mentioned he's boomer bust. Like, that's his course history here too. 5th, 46 miscut. So plenty of upside, maybe a little more risk than some of these other guys. Tom Kim, right now we have him at 24% ownership. If he's going to be that high, I'm probably okay looking elsewhere. I like Doug Gim, good ball striker. I don't know about his upside with the putter, but he's been pretty good lately. He's been pretty good at this course. And then I will play some Jackson Koiven. Like, the last time we saw him in a regular non-alt event, he missed the cut, and he was one of the most expensive guys in the field. So I think this is a good time to hop back on him. And then Knapp, I just can't play him until we see something from him.
Yeah, has been battling injury, ineffectiveness, and not on nap as well. For those of you that were wondering about Koivu, he did play once the last 2 weeks in one of the alternate field events. So there was alternate field events both weeks for the Scottish and the Open Championship. He played at the ISCO, which was one of those, and finished T10, all 4 rounds 68 or better. So a nice rebound from his miscut there at the John Deere when he was pretty popular. I agree. He probably makes my large field GPP pool as well. Don't mind getting back on the ship there with Koivu. He would probably be, maybe my third choice behind those couple of guys that I tagged in the 9Ks. All right, let's go ahead and move down into the 8K range. Jackson Super leading that off, and really impressive start at the Open for him last week. I think he had said he'd played, 25 holes of links golf and was out there leading it after the first round. So Jackson Super living his best life out there at Royal Birkdale last week. Respectable week for him. I got Gary Woodland, Corey Connors, Max Homa, Sung J M, Sam Stevens, Jordan Smith up to 8,300 this week. Tony Finau, who we just talked about a little bit ago, maybe as expensive as he's been in quite some time. Meisner and Benjamin James, a new name on the PGA Tour radar since turning pro, has been playing pretty well also. So some interesting names in here, though obviously, it's a notable dip in the strength of the field here once we get into the 8Ks. I'll let you go first. Who you like in here?
Yeah, don't love a lot in this range, which is why I'm either going to play Scheffler or 2 guys from the 9K range. I don't know. Super's fine. Obviously played well for a couple rounds last week, but then all these other guys just feel overpriced to me until we get down to Meisner. 8,100 is a pretty good price point for him. He's got a couple top 6s in his last 6 starts. Played here twice, T14 here in 2025. And then I like Benjamin James, a young guy that had some decent finishes earlier in the year and then really took advantage of the 2 alt events, T4 at Corrales, T15 the week before that. And the stats look awesome for Ben James. So especially with my weighted proximity for this course. So a guy that I think could be interesting down there. So I like Meisner and James. But outside of that, I don't know. Smith, Finau, Stevens, Sungjae, they just all feel overpriced to me. And I think guys in the 7s are just as good a place.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know much about James, he was basically one of the or the top-rated college golfer. 7 college titles, 35 top 10s, a national runner-up finish with University of Virginia. Has played for the U.S. team in the Walker Cup and the Palmer Cup. So, he's a highly decorated amateur that's been taking the ground running since playing on the PGA Tour a handful of times there. So that's Ben James, and that's why he's priced up at 8K. And he's played this course before. He was a sponsor exemption here a couple of years ago. So again, even though there wasn't a notable finish to be had there, at least he's played this course competitively. And it might be he hasn't played in a lot of strong field PGA Tour events yet, but this isn't one of them either. So no problem playing him this week. Meisner as well. I don't mind at that salary for the reasons you mentioned. I'll take some shots on Gary Woodland as well, just because, again, I don't mind playing the risk reward angle with some of the bombers. He was terrible last week, but Gary Woodland is not an Open Championship guy. That's not what his game is. And right now we have him as the lowest owned golfer above 8K out of everybody. So again, another guy that I think you could really consider in GPP formats this week. But otherwise, I kind of agree on the whole. This range seems relatively weak. So, if you're starting in the 9s, and then you can just kind of dip down and get quite a few golfers to round things out in the 7s. Or if you're starting with Scheffler, then, you don't have a whole lot of need to go for the 8s anyways. Anything else in that range?
Homa doesn't project well for me, but he has been playing much better over the last couple months. Did you have any interest there?
Yeah, I think he's all right. I mean, would probably be another guy that I'd say GPP only, but if I look at our RotoGrinders projections, our ceiling number on him is fairly high compared to a lot of the others in this range. So a guy that I tend to undervalue, I think, most of the time, but I don't mind him this week.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same.
All right, let's go ahead and move down into the 7K range. Bazudenhout and our boy Yellow Miraju leading off this range. Another bomber in a couple bombers in Neergaard Peterson and Michael Brennan in the upper 7K range as well. Then we've got Grazerman, Davis Thompson, Jason Day, Rasmus Højgaard, and William Mao getting us down to 7,500. I think Neergaard Peterson is interesting, particularly if you're playing that bomber angle, and he played really well last week. Couple of really solid rounds got him to a quietly good finish. So I think he is one of my favorites in this upper 7K range. What do you got in here?
Yeah, I don't mind that call. He was a guy who played a bunch earlier in the year. He was so good on the DP World Tour last year, and it's good to see him finally playing a little bit more consistent golf. I don't mind Bazudenhout at the top. Not a good driver of the ball, but everything else has been really good. He was T20 here last year, and he always seems to pop in my model when driving distance isn't weighted at all. So a guy that I don't mind. If you are playing the bomber angle, Michael Brennan, just an elite driver of the ball, mashes it. So I don't mind that. And then 7,500, William Mao, very good off the tee, very good approach. He's just bad, really bad short game, but T7 here last year. So I think he could be interesting too.
Yeah, another guy that I don't mind, and we're looking at, probably 5 to 10% ownership, I think, on most of these guys. I don't, maybe Seabez is a little bit. I just don't see anybody being like chalk in here.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
All right, we get down to the lower 7K range where you are really going to be trying to populate those Scheffler lineups if you have them from say 6,500 to 7,500. You're going to be quite interested in any players that might pop in here. I know you mentioned that some of your best model options might come from this lower part of the 7K range. So I'll give you first crack here.
Yeah, so the model loves Ben Coles, a guy that kind of just came out of nowhere in his last 6 events. Win 29th, 23rd, 19th, 3rd, and 15th. Back-to-back top 25s at this course. So he's got the form, the course history. He's second in good drive percentage in the field, second in approach. That's over the last 6 months. Proximity numbers look good. Bogey avoidance looks good. So if you just ignore the name and look at the stats, it's hard not to like him at 7,300. Who else? Kevin Yu finally showed a little bit of life the last time we saw him, and then T24 last week. He's a bomber if you want to play that angle. In the lower range, I keep forgetting how to say Bao Chu? I forget every week, and then we look it up.
Yeah, it's either Bao Chow or Bao Chu, and I forget too. I think you might have it right.
He projects very well for me. Max McGreevy projects pretty well. They're both 7,100. Then we got a couple guys like Casey Jarvis. You brought him up a few times.
I was going to mention him again. He was sixth place last week.
Played great, especially on Sunday. So yeah, I think there's some interesting guys here. And then I like the high 6s quite a bit too. Who else is standing out to you?
Yeah, so Jarvis is definitely one in the low 7s. I'll keep him in my player pool. I mean, you look at he's made 5 consecutive cuts, 3 top 25s. The T6 last week where he really would have been in the mix if not for the first round. So Jarvis I like quite a bit. If you're interested in some of these young guys, another guy that was the top-rated amateur before turning pro was Preston Stout, kind of in that same mold as Ben James. Obviously, we haven't seen Stout have as much success at the PGA Tour level yet, which is baked into the fact that he's also $800 cheaper than James. So Preston Stout, I think, is another guy that you could look at in your GPP builds. I like Matty Schmid a decent amount. He played good in Scotland, was the first alternate last week, but nobody else withdrew, so he didn't end up getting to play, but got to come back here early. The stats aren't, spectacular, but he's been playing a little better and has a couple decent finishes on this course. So Schmid at 7,100. Again, probably some risk reward here. I think Bao Chow, McGreevy are probably your safer options, but Schmid, Stout, Jarvis, some guys that I will definitely mix into my tournament pool. Rico Hoey is looking like he might have some ownership. I'm kind of neutral on him. I always tend to get a little frustrated with the putter with Hoey, but his game is if the ball striking's locked in, he could have a good week. I think that's it. Anything else about that's it for 7K and up? Anything else you got in here? I mean, if you're playing the safe angle, like the fairways and greens angle and guys who might club down, I could maybe make a case for Andrew Putnam, but I'm going for the upside this week.
Yeah, my guy Putnam. I don't mind Lee Hodges, former winner here. He has missed the cut here last couple of years, and his form's been wild this year. He either makes the cut and posts like a top 30, or he misses the cut. So very inconsistent. And you mentioned Hoey. He just has been like, the irons are gone. They used to be elite, and that's why we played him every week. And now, like, he's 54th over the last 3 months in approach, 60th over the last 6 months. So for me, he's a stay away at high ownership. And then that's it for me in the sevens.
All right, moving down to the value options at get the floor is 6K on DraftKings this week, so 6K to 6,900. This is the spot where I don't really like a lot of guys down here. I can get on board with a few of those lower 7 guys, but again, if you're playing Scheffler, your average is 7,020 on DraftKings for your remaining 5 options. So you're going to need at least a couple guys in the 6s, and that's where I have a tougher time getting on board. I've seen the buzz for Zach Blair this week, and I can get behind Blair a little bit, but I've seen Aaron Wise talked up a couple places, and I don't know. I'm just not finding a whole lot in the 6s that I love. So this is where you're really going to have to sell me.
Yeah. So Zach Blair's the obvious guy. He's been great. The last 5 starts, 8th, 9th, 27th, 32nd, and 40th. And he doesn't gain a lot of strokes off the tee, but he hits a ton of fairways, which I like. Very good approach player. He's 6th over the last 6 months in this field. And then, doesn't make a lot of bogeys. So I think he makes a lot of sense at 6,900. I could see him being 7,500, and I'd probably still want to play him. And then, the model likes Joel Damon. I don't know about that one. I can get behind Austin Eckroat at 6,900. The model also likes Tyler Duncan, who I don't think I've rostered this guy in years. He used to be like the cheap ball striker that we would play at some of these weak field events. He's been hit or miss, but he does have 3 top 30s in his last 5 starts. He's made 3 straight cuts at this event. So if you want like a super cheap guy, 6,200 for him. And yeah, like you mentioned, if you play Scheffler, I'm looking at like $2 $7,100 guys, Blair, and then hopefully not having to go too cheap with my last 2. So that very last spot is what I'm really worried about.
Yeah, this is the fun event where everybody wanted to play EVR for a couple years because he went to college at Minnesota, and he seemingly missed the cut every year.
Wait, now that you brought that up, Tom Hoagie, I remember I would always play him at this event because he grew up playing right in the area. So maybe we play some Tom. How much is he? 69. There we go. That's the missing link.
Eric Van Rooyen has a 58th and 3 missed cuts. The college experience has not helped. Hoagie, 3 missed cuts, a 4th and a 20th the last 5 years. So a little better. At least got the couple top finishes there.
A little better. He's been playing better. 10th, 33rd, 38th.
All right. I'm still not that sold on the 6s, so I'm still stuck being a little underweight on Scheffler, I think, or even with the field. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see because I know somebody that I'm not expecting is going to end up being relatively popular in the 6Ks just because everybody that's playing Scheffler is going to go fishing for somebody. Like Pot Eater was 15% owned at the John Deere. I didn't see that one coming. Some unknown option is going to end up being somewhat chalky here this week, but it'll be interesting to see who that is.
Yeah, for sure. We only have Zach Blair at a couple percent, I think, but I think
he'll be higher than that.
Maybe double digits.
Yeah, but I mean, we're not talking 20, but because of what Scheffler forces you to do if you want to play him, and he's getting talked up a bit. Yeah, I think he'll be closer to 10. All right. With that, speaking of Pock Eater, the defending champ next week at the Rocket Classic in Detroit. So we'll have another probably weak field event for that one before we get to FedEx Cup playoff time. So, Noto, anything else before we get out of here?
Did get a question about Matt McNeely. We kind of skipped over him in the high nines. I think he's very safe. The approach play hasn't been great lately, but I think he's certainly a strong option in this week field.
Yeah, I would be surprised if he doesn't, make the weekend or finishes outside the top 50 or something like that. I mean, he's only missed 2 cuts all year. One of them was last week, but again, not putting a whole lot of stock into that. But we haven't seen a top 10 from him since February. So I just don't want to pay his salary a whole lot for a guy that's probably going to get me 20th and give or take a few places. So I don't dislike him. I wouldn't argue with you for rostering him, but it's probably not big on my radar this week.
Yep, I'm the same way.
All right. Thanks as always for watching. Those of you out there, even if you're watching us on playback on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. We appreciate that. Help us beat that YouTube algorithm. And with that, we'll call it a week. We'll be back for the Rocket Classic next week. Thanks as always to Steve for producing behind the scenes for us. Thanks to Noto for joining me. I'm Justin. Hope you all have a great week, and we will catch you back here same time, same place next week. Till then, take care. Good luck, everybody.